Welcome to the Haunted Hangover podcast. I'm Louie, and as always, I'm joined by my bud Dave.
Hey.
So Dave.
So Lou.
We're in the middle of our series of episodes covering some animated Halloween specials.
Smack dab.
And I've got one question for you.
Yeah?
When there's something strange in the neighborhood, who you gonna call?
Ghostbusters!
That's right. So Dave, I don't think we've ever talked about our fandom or loose fandom for Ghostbusters. Like, I don't even think personally we've ever spoken about it.
Maybe very briefly, or it was touched upon for maybe a minute. I actually don't remember.
We did talk about the toys, but where do you stand when it comes to the cartoon and the movies? Like, how much of a Ghostbusters fan are you?
Well, when I was a kid, I was really, really into Ghostbusters, the movies, the cartoon. I'm not gonna lie, I don't have a huge memory about the movie and like when it, like obviously I know it came out in the 80s, but I have more memories about with the toys and the cartoon. I do remember this, however. I remember, and I believe it goes to Ghostbusters 2, was when that Bobby Brown song was on the soundtrack. Was it On Our Own? That was like fucking everywhere. Like,
it was.
That song was huge. And I remember
that was a really popular song. Yeah, that was the sequel. That came out, I think, 89. So
I don't know the year.
Bobby Brown was, I think it was 89. Bobby Brown was happening.
Yeah, I remember it being everywhere. So
yeah, that's
all I can really go with the movie. But like the cartoon, I had the firehouse, I had the car, I had all the toys, all the spin-off toys. I have a very distinct memory of one of the toys that was a gun/projector called the Ghost Zapper. And by the way, y'all should look up the commercial for it because it's fucking awesome.
It is. I remember it vividly.
Yeah, so basically it was just a gun that had a projector in it, and you would just point it on the ceiling or the wall and it would project a monster or like a ghost. And in this case, it was really more so a monster than a ghost. And you could, like, pretend to catch it, And the memory that I'm talking about is I remember, and it was on a school night, was my mother was sitting in the living room with me, and we had shut all the lights off. She was just sitting there, didn't make a peep, was very quiet, and I was just casting the fucking monsters everywhere. And it was amazing. It was so cool. And I just like remember that. Like I could picture it. I could remember what my old living room looked like. I remember my mom sitting there just like letting me do my thing with this fucking Ghostbusters toy. And it was pretty awesome. I wish I still had that gun, but that was a really cool toy. I always wanted the proton pack, but I never got that. What about you?
Yeah, I never got that either. When was the last time you actually watched one of the movies? Because the movie, I love the original movie, is one of my favorite movies of all time. So I just find it interesting that you don't have as close a relationship to the original film as I do.
Like I said, I really can't go back and jog my memory as far as the movie goes. The cartoon, I think, was always more the bigger thing with me.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because when it comes to like the nostalgic community, all the 80s and 90s stuff, Ghostbusters is huge. Just so to hear someone that likes the animated series more than the original film that's unique. You're a unique person, Dave.
Hey, I'll do what I can.
So for me, going back to me, it's one of my favorite movies. It's probably in my top 10 favorite movies of all time. I don't know where I'd place it, but it'd be high on the list. I know the original film like the back of my hand. As a kid, just like you, I had all the toys. One thing I vividly remember, two things actually I vividly remember that I had as a kid when it came to merchandise was I had a red backpack, bright red, and it just said Real Ghostbusters on it. I think it had black straps, and I don't think it had any of the characters, just the logo, Real Ghostbusters on it. And I had the underwear. The little remember, yeah, remember
probably
the
did
underwear
too.
with the print on the back,
Yeah.
and I believe the underwear had an image of Peter Venkman. I think
So weird.
using his proton pack on Slimer.
It's so weird.
It was weird. That was on the back of the underwear. It was like the brief. And yeah, I just always loved the movie, and well, both movies, the sequel as well, and the cartoon. So it's just always been a part of me, and just something I always go back to. Dude, I could watch that movie whenever it's on TV. Like if it's playing on AMC at like 1 a.m. and I'm just skimming through the channels and it's on, I'll turn it on, even though I own it on like DVD, VHS, and Blu-ray. Like
Yeah.
I'll still just watch it.
Trifecta.
And when it comes to the cartoon, and I want to just feel nostalgia, nothing brings me back more than that opening theme song and the intro to the TV show where you have like the ghost walking down the block, avoiding like the trash cans and shit, and then hopping into the logo. Like that just brings me back to being like 5 years old. And there's only 2 other shows that really have that effect on me, and that's Pee-wee's Playhouse and the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And I'm a big fan of all 3, but I think I was more of a Ghostbusters kid than a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles kid. And I love Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but I think I just gravitated more towards Ghostbusters.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because I gravitated more towards Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So that's a funny dichotomy. Is that the right term? I don't know.
But that leads us into the episode we're going to be covering today, and that is the Real Ghostbusters, When Halloween Was Forever.
I wish it was.
You say those things are your little ones?
All things of the night are mine, on this night more than any other. For I am Samhain. I am Halloween.
So this episode was released on November 1st, 1986. It was part of Season 1, Episode 8. It was also one of 3 Halloween episodes.
I didn't know that, and I'm not gonna lie. As much as I loved this series as a kid, I have zero recollection of this episode. So watching this again was like watching it for the first time because I really didn't remember anything in it.
So another weird thing about this that I noticed was it was released on November 1st. That makes no sense.
It's so weird, but it's funny. It's almost like a cushion for the post Halloween blues. It's like we know it's over, but here you go.
Yeah.
Here's a Ghostbusters episode themed after Halloween.
And I feel like that's happened to a lot of Halloween specials for like series.
Yeah.
Like it comes out after.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
Like the day after or like a week after. Like I know it's happened to like The Simpsons because of sports and stuff like that, and other shows where like I don't know if basketball or baseball or something's on and they have to like reschedule the show when it's released. But I just find it odd that a Saturday morning cartoon that is a Halloween special aired on the 1st. But I guess Halloween was on like a weekday.
Probably.
And they just were like, all right, Saturday morning cartoons will air it on the 1st.
Yeah.
So this episode opens with a reporter outside of a building explaining that it's Halloween Eve.
I love that it opens up on Devil's Night.
I know. I knew you were gonna say that, and I hate that they didn't say Devil's Night. They just say Halloween Eve.
Well, it's not a thing everywhere.
Yeah, it's weird because like no one really uses Halloween Eve. That's not a thing. Like as far as I know, no one ever is like it's Halloween Eve. It's always Devil's Night, like your favorite night of the year.
I like Halloween Eve.
So we see the Ghostbusters. They're in this building, and they're doing what they do best, and that's busting ghosts. And the Ghostbusters are catching these set of like hairy little ghosts that look more like monsters. Going back to kind of what you said before, on this series, ghosts never really look like ghosts. They look more like little creatures.
I just want to say this. And I have this in my notes, and it makes me laugh. Just watching it, it was cracking me up. All these ghosts that legit just look like monsters, they all look like New York hardcore characters that all these band logos would use, and especially that they do it today. Like, literally, they all look like something you could put into a a band that's recreating a New York hardcore sound, and you just slap one of those monsters with a hoodie on, with their arms crossed, and you have a logo. That's all it reminded me of the entire time I was watching this.
It's an interesting choice, though, and I'm guessing they did that to sell toys.
Oh, probably.
Making every single ghost unique and look more like a monster.
I actually loved all the monster designs. That was as a show collectively, that is one of my favorite things of the series, is that all the monsters are cool and unique looking.
So they catch these ghosts, they exit the building, and the reporter's there, and she comes up to Peter Venkman, and he's being his usual cocky self, claiming that catching these ghosts was a piece of cake, when in actuality it wasn't. They had some trouble.
You know what's funny? As I'm watching this, and I'm like, it's all coming back to me because I haven't watched this in a while. I'm noticing the voice acting, and I'm like, oh, that's just somebody who's biting off Bill Murray's voice, because clearly they're trying to sound like Bill Murray, but it's not Bill Murray. And I looked up who does the voice acting. It's Dave Coulier as Peter Venkman.
Yeah, it is. I don't know. So here's a funny thing. I know he voiced Peter eventually. I don't know if that's him in this episode.
Okay.
I believe it's the dude that voiced Garfield. Voiced him the first season or two. And then Dave Coulier, I guess he joined the cast later on.
Also, Arsenio Hall voiced Winston.
Yeah, my dude Arsenio.
That's amazing.
Yo, I love Arsenio Hall. I don't care what anyone says.
He's amazing.
His talk show was the best.
It was great. My buddy Nikos linked me to something on Facebook the other day, and it was when he had Vanity on as a guest, and like he's talking to, I forgot the guy's name, and he's like, I hope she likes me, and he's like I hope, I'm gonna mack it to her, and then she comes out, and he's so nervous, and he doesn't say anything, and she's like, he's kind of cute, and then she does her whole video song, and it's amazing.
I have to watch that video.
I'll link it to you.
It's funny. Arsenio, he interviewed all the cool people like Macho Man, Ultimate Warrior. I think Macho Man was on the show too, right? Jason, yeah. That was the talk show like people our age when we were kids would watch, because
Absolutely.
just he'd get all the cool shit.
And he would do the woo, 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 woo. Fucking awesome.
He was the man. So he still is the man. He's going to be in Coming to America too.
Absolutely.
That's about to come out.
That's about the way it was, too. A lot of this strange things happened at this place. I took my grandmother.
Like what? Give me an example of something strange that happened in this house.
The wind's always blowing, the doors close all the time, and just weird, strange noises, and the lights go off and on, This is very cool.
It could have been somebody hitting the switch.
Freddy.
Freddy Krueger.
So, back at the Ghostbusters firehouse, the crew start discussing how difficult it was to bust these ghosts and how it might have something to do with Halloween approaching. Peter notices that Egon is doing some research, so he's like really focused in front of a computer or something. He's doing Egon shit. He's just
being Egon.
And he asks him like, "What's up? Like, what's going on?" And Egon just kind of refuses to tell him. He's kind of like, "Oh, don't worry about it. Blah blah blah. Don't worry." He ignores him, brushes him off. So Peter's plan is to basically threaten Egon by telling Slimer there's a cupcake in his shoe. In his shoes or his socks, I think. It was his socks, actually.
It's amazing.
Now, I want to talk about Slimer a bit, because Slimer is such a lovable character, like in the show, like on the show. He's so important to the show. He's the heart of it, in reality. Like, he is the reason the Real Ghostbusters was so successful, I think.
You can't say Ghostbusters without Ecto Cooler. And who was the spokesman for Ecto Cooler? Slimer. And you could dig the marketing. So you already have the Ghostbusters as a crew who are likable. Now you throw in Slimer, who is now, which I always thought was interesting how they adapted Slimer as their pet in the cartoon. Because in the movie, Slimer's just a ghost. It's just a ghost eating shit in the hotel when they fucking zap him.
He's actually like a bad guy. He's not even like a good guy, technically. In the movie, they're like, he's the first ghost they bust.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and Slimer and Peter's like constant back and forth, and how he's always hungry. They throw treats at him. He's always eating sandwiches and ice cream, and he's constantly a pain in the ass. like the entire crew are always like, Slimer, why are you doing this and why are you doing that? And they constantly hound him. But in the end, they always kind of like love him and care about him, and they always have to save him, but he's also saved them countless times.
There's something I just want to add. We keep referring to Slimer as a he. We don't know what's now refer to Slimer as a it, because we do not know its gender of a monster / ghost.
Dude, I've been calling him a he for 30 years.
I know.
I don't think I believe that they call him a he though.
They might.
I think they say he. I think they say Slimer. And another funny thing about Slimer was he was so popular. Again, he was on the merch and Ecto Cooler, like you said, and he was just on T-shirts. He was on everything, Slimer. That they eventually called this show Slimer and the Real Ghostbusters, like a few seasons later.
Forgot about that.
Yeah, and between him and Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, like, those guys are what made the Ghostbusters. Like, that's, like, those are my dudes forever, Slimer and Stay Puft. Like, anytime I think of Ghostbusters, I think of those two characters and just how vital they are to the franchise as a whole.
Right. It was the marketing. That marketing of those two characters really, like, careened the entire fucking franchise of the Ghostbusters.
100%. So Egon finally gives in because he doesn't want Slimer, flying into his socks to find a cupcake that doesn't exist. And he tells the guys that he notices a large increase in his PKE readings. That's something that, like, they always focused on in Ghostbusters, the PKE readings. When they're spiking, that means there's more ghost activity.
Oh boy.
And the reason there's this increase is because this large ancient ruin arrived in town from Ireland. I also want to mention that the way Peter gets rid of Slimer, going back to Slimer's his characteristics, is by tossing a lollipop downstairs, like down the pole that they slide. He tosses it.
The chute.
Yeah. And then Slimer just kind of like runs downstairs to grab it. And he eats it in one bite. It's so he like grabs the lollipop and just like, it doesn't even chew it. It just swallows the lollipop. And Egon actually uses that lollipop against Peter because he tells Slimer that there's another lollipop in Peter's socks. So I thought that was pretty funny how they're just kind of assholes to each other and use Slimer to kind of annoy the other person.
With snacks.
We then cut to these two little demons who sneak into a museum and start chanting Samhain to this ancient ruin, and they draw this like infinity symbol on it. It's never fully explained. I believe the ruin is a clock. It's in the shape of a clock. It's like an ancient clock.
Yeah.
They don't really give us too many details.
I thought it was like a doorway that was like unearthed from something, like a cave or something. I don't know. I couldn't. That's just what it looked like to me.
I had to look it up, and I think it's referred to as a clock, an ancient ruin,
that makes sense.
Like clock thing. So this releases Samhain from his slumber. And Samhain, let's describe him a little bit. He's obviously a ghost, and he's wearing this purple cloak with a giant like popped collar, and he's got a jack-o'-lantern for a head with these little itty bitty teeth that are weird looking. Little eye. He's got like little eyes and claws, and he's actually, I actually like the design. He's really cool. He looks like a toy.
Yeah, he's cool looking.
So Samhain flies over New York and starts summoning all these ghosts to follow him, and you see like
it's amazing.
He's like flying and just telling them all to join him and follow him, and they just follow him. I guess he's so powerful he can control every ghost in New York.
And everything turns to ghosts.
So back at the firehouse, Janine hears a couple of trick-or-treaters and answers the door and gives them some candy. And another group of trick-or-treaters show up, and it's these two little demons. And I believe it's the same demons that we see earlier that sneak into the museum.
You know, it's funny. I totally forgot about Janine. When I was watching, I was like, holy shit, Janine, I forgot about her. And I always loved Annie Potts as Janine in the Ghostbusters movies. So I was just that was just one of those things like, oh wait, I forgot about this character. I was a little mad at myself. I forgot about her.
Yeah, no, Janine rules. She's great, and then she does way more on the Real Ghostbusters than she does in the movie. She actually becomes a Ghostbuster, like uses a proton pack and everything further down into the further into the series. But going back to this scene with the two little demons that are pretending to be trick-or-treaters. So yeah, they blow out this gust of wind at Janine out of their breath or something. It just kind of pushes her back. And her reaction is, she assumes they hate bonbons. That's because that's what she's handing out to trick-or-treaters. So she doesn't go, oh, these are two fucking creepy demons that just attacked me. She just goes, oh, I guess these kids don't like bonbons. I guess it was supposed to be a joke, but it just comes off as she's kind of silly and dumb, and she just thinks it's kids that hate candy, this particular candy.
Those are good goblin costumes.
So this incident with Janine causes the Ghostbusters to suit up and head out and trap all these ghosts that Samhain has unleashed throughout the entire city.
And the music that comes on as soon as they rush out of the headquarters is awesome.
It is. The soundtrack, like, in the series is great. Like, everything. The entire series has a great score. Even the updated version of the Ghostbusters theme from the movie is awesome. Like, it's great overall.
It's synthy and vaporwave as fuck.
So we cut to Slimer, who I think is just kind of hanging out in the basement or somewhere in the firehouse. And since he's technically a ghost, Samhain is using his, and this is what I call it in my notes, his force power to pull all the ghosts, including Slimer, against his will, towards this area on top of a building where Samhain is kind of hanging out. Like, it's his club. It's his spot where everyone's meeting.
His lair.
His lair. I love how in like the Ghostbusters lore, ghosts always want to meet up on top of skyscrapers. It happens in the movie and it happens on the TV show.
There's nothing wrong with that.
So when Slimer comes face to face with Samhain, he tells Slimer that he has the stench of the Ghostbusters on him, and if he doesn't join his ghost army, he'll pay the price. I don't know what that is. He's basically threatening him.
Samhain's got some pretty good lines in this, by the way. There was one line, he's like, all not of this world come to me, and the world shall know only eternal night. I was like, yo, these are song titles.
Fucking black metal lyrics is what that sounds like.
It's awesome.
So Slimer's with Samhain. He's stressed out. He's being held captive. So we cut back to the Ghostbusters, who were busy busting Ghost, and they notice that their watches are frozen. They're no longer moving anymore. Time has stopped. Samhain shows up, and he asks the Ghostbusters, why are you harming my little ones? And he also introduces himself and throws some lightning at them. Basically, he makes his presence known for the first time. and Ray has a really cool line, too, because when Samhain shows up, he says, Halloween began as the Feast of Samhain, a creature of the night no one could stop. Something along those lines. And this is kind of where Samhain explains his whole scheme of how he's frozen time and plans on having Halloween night last forever. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. So Samhain was right for wanting that, man. I'm not hating on it.
So I have in my notes, it would be funny if we were part of the Real Ghostbusters, and because we love Halloween so much, we purposely didn't catch Samhain because we wanted Halloween to last forever. I just was like laughing the whole time. I was like, we wouldn't want this to end though, so we might not catch Samhain.
In my eyes, Samhain is no villain.
No,
he is a hero.
Not at all.
So in the process of Samhain, basically this whole monologue explaining what he's going to do, what his plan is, Egon flashes a light at him for some reason, which causes Samhain to scurry off and run away from the Ghostbusters. And that's basically how they learn of his weakness. Like, they learn what light is what can defeat him. That's what he's scared of, or I don't think it can defeat him. I think he's just scared of light, which is why he wants Halloween night to last forever. And they come up with this plan to use a bunch of spotlights to defeat him, or to kind of scare him and then trap him. That's kind of their plan in stopping Samhain. So Egon tells the rest of the boys to run upstairs into the building to the roof while he gathers a bunch of spotlights. And we cut to Peter, Winston, and Ray kind of going up the stairs, and there's this really cool sequence where you see them going through, like, passing these windows in the building, and you see all the ghosts they're catching on the way up. There's like a floating pumpkin with like wings, I think. There's a mummy. Like, is that even a ghost? Like, going back to what we've been saying, like a random mummy all bandaged up shows up, and they're like, you like hear the proton packs going off.
It's all right. I will take it.
So they finally get to the roof where Samhain's gathering all his creatures and his ghost, his roof layer. And we cut back down to Egon, who's on the ground level, and I think he's trying to put all the spotlights together, and he notices two ghosts randomly driving around in a car. And his plan is to insult them, to get them to run at him so they can push lights and kind of align them together. And his insult is this. He calls them zone dweebies. Such a hurtful insult.
Terrible.
For some
X-rated.
reason, calling ghosts zone dweebies really upsets them, and they just want to attack humans.
It's a no-no.
There's also this really funny scene where Slimer and Samhain are together, and I think Samhain's still trying to persuade Slimer into joining his ghost squad and destroy the world. And, you know, he's telling Samhain, I think he's kind of like in his Slimer way, that he doesn't want to join. And he does, I think it's called a raspberry, where you go like you do that. He does that to Samhain, and Samhain gets upset and like throws Slimer into a pit of ghost, and they all kind of like stretch him and fuck with him. And I just found it so funny that's also Slimer's insult to Samhain. That's what he's gonna do to upset him. So everyone's throwing these absurd insults at each other to piss people off.
It's downright mean.
So back on the roof, Peter, Winston, and Ray finally realize that Slimer is being held hostage by Samhain. They didn't know this up until this point, which I did think was a cool thing, because they left the firehouse and left Slimer behind and didn't think that he's a ghost.
Right.
And that he'd be taken.
They had no idea.
You know, he would be taken from them because he had no choice. He'd be forced into it. And Samhain tells the Ghostbusters to lower their weapons, or he'll squish or like suck all the life out of Slimer. So he's holding, let me describe this. He's holding Slimer in his hands and kind of like smushing him together.
Molding
and every time he does it, Slimer kind of fades away a little bit. It's like he's sucking all his life out of, even though he's a ghost. So I'm not sure how that works with science, but he's basically evaporating Slimer. And Ray comes up with this bright idea, because we all know Slimer loves food and loves snacks and loves junk food. Ray screams, "Pizza!"
Whoop, whoop.
And this causes Slimer to spring back to life. He's all vibrant now. He's not fading away anymore, and break away from Samhain. You know, breaks his grasp on him. And Egon, in that moment, turns on all the spotlights. And this causes Samhain to scream in agony and in pain. He's like, no! And they use their proton packs, and I don't know if they use their proton packs, but they do trap Samhain finally.
They trap him.
So we cut to the closing of the episode, and this is something I got a kick out of. So they're back at the firehouse. They're back down in the basement in the containment unit.
Yep.
and the Ghostbusters are talking, and they're kind of just watching in on Samhain because they have like this little window on the containment unit. And he is like so emo looking, just sitting there amongst all the ghosts in a corner. And I forget what Ghostbusters says it, but they're like, he's just waiting for another opportunity to escape. And it's just funny to see him like hunched over with his hand under his chin, just waiting there tight. He's upset. He's
got a scheme. He's got to get his way out again. He waited 1,200 years. He's got to come out again.
He's just waiting for another day where he can break free and return.
While I was watching this scene, while they're all looking at all the monsters and the ghosts trapped in the containment unit, I was thinking it would be really funny if somebody took this scene and just looped it with the pan of all the monsters and just put like some New York hardcore band over it, like Outburst or Killing Time, just because it looked like just like all the New York hardcore logos in one room, just dancing and moshing to it to like something heavy. It would be really funny.
That would be funny. I might have to do that.
I think you do have to do that.
So yeah, while they're watching Samhain mope around inside the containment unit, a floating jack-o'-lantern starts to approach them, and Janine flicks on the light, and it's revealed to be Slimer playing a trick on them for Halloween. He starts laughing, and the whole group starts laughing, and they're all happy. It's a really cute moment. And we cut to one final shot of the firehouse, and Janine uttering the words, "Stop tickling me," and I'll leave you with that.
The 80s cartoons.
Look, don't make me come up there.
I give you one last warning. Leave us alone. The spirit of Halloween cannot be stopped by mere mortals.
So, as per usual with our episodes, we like to pick what our favorite things were and what maybe something we change or something we didn't necessarily like about it. And one of my favorite things about this episode was the entertainment center that the Ghostbusters had in their headquarters. There's this giant, huge speaker and like multiple gadgets and VCRs piled on top of each other. And it's just something I would want to watch movies on all the time. Did you pay any attention to that entertainment unit?
No, I didn't even. Honestly, I didn't notice it. What scene is that in? Like,
it's as soon as they are finished catching the ghost in the very beginning, and it's like a fade. It's like a fade in to their or it's like a TV scene. I forgot honestly, but it's like you see a TV and it's somebody on the TV. And then it's this entertainment unit, and I'm just like, shit. I was like, I want to watch movies on that.
It's funny because I feel like the Ghostbusters always have cool shit in the firehouse, because even in the video game, there was a video game a few years ago, and I actually recently replayed it. They have like an arcade in the firehouse, like that you see them playing at times. So like the Ghostbusters just always had cool shit. They always had like food and stuff in there. They lived there. That was like their home technically. All the gadgets. It was like heaven to a 5-year-old kid.
One day I'm actually going to recreate that actual entertainment unit and have it as my TV setup, if you will. So Lou, what was one of your favorite moments of this episode?
So one of my favorite things about this episode is the whole concept of Slimer being forced to join Samhain, even though he didn't want to, because Slimer is a good ghost. He's not a bad guy. And I think it's a pretty cool concept when you think about it, because imagine there was like this evil demon ghost thing and you were a ghost, but you care about people. But since you're a supernatural entity, something more powerful than you can control you. And that's what happens to Slimer. Like he's just hanging out at home in the firehouse, and he's like literally pulled out of his home and forced to join Samhain and all the ghosts. And it's just an interesting concept, and I feel like that's something that could be explored more. And it doesn't have to be in something to do with Ghostbusters, just in a movie or show.
Yeah, I like that.
Or maybe something I'll write one day. Who the fuck knows? But
That'd
like,
be
it's
great.
just a concept that's like, if you were good, a good spirit, and a bad spirit, kind of can just control you. It's just interesting.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just feel like it could be elaborated on some more.
I like that, Lou.
What's another thing you dug about the episode, Dave?
So this was not going to be on my list of things I liked about it, but it just so happened to happen. And it was the part where Ray is trying to get Slimer's attention from Samhain with pizza and wake him up out of his little,
Yeah.
his little daze. And literally, so I watched this episode on the Daily Motion. So it was split up into one 10-minute video and then another 12-minute video. But the second one, so the first one didn't have ads. So I wasn't expecting this. So the second one had ads. So literally, as soon as they try to lure Slimer back with pizza, the show stopped and an ad came on, and it was literally a fucking ad for pizza. So I was just like, get the fuck out of here. So that is my second favorite thing about this episode.
Big Brother was watching you, man.
The unintentional pizza ad that just happened to happen after trying to lure Slimer with pizza. So I really loved that. I was just like, no, there's no fucking way. But it happened.
So another thing I loved about this episode, and I feel like it's something, we can relate to, and it's something we've actually talked about on the podcast, is, so in the scene, Ray and the rest of the Ghostbusters are walking through, I believe it's Central Park. It's a park. And Peter notices that there's lights in the trees. And he's like, oh, look, it's Christmas lights. And Ray goes, Christmas lights? It's a little early for Christmas. It just keeps coming earlier and earlier every year. And it turns out that they're not lights. They're actually ghosts in the trees. And I just find it funny that even 34 years ago, people were still saying that Christmas decorations are showing up early, like in the middle of Halloween, just earlier and earlier. And I just think it's something that us Halloween lovers have just always been dealing with. Like Christmas, the Christmas season is right after Halloween. And even in the 80s, people were bitching about that.
Yep.
Even in cartoons.
That's funny. I really didn't pay any mind to that line, but now as you bring it to light, it really is. It's funny and it's ironic that it's still happening. Like it's just it's like, oh wow, that's been going on for a while now.
Yeah, but people always say that every year it's getting like it's September, we're already seeing Christmas decorations.
It's true.
But in actuality, I think it's just always been like that. And we just don't know how to deal with it. We haven't coped with this concept yet.
I will say this. I really do feel, and I've had this conversation with people. I don't know if I've had this conversation with you, which is also ironic because we both love Halloween. But I was thinking about how in from 2010 to 2014, I feel like Halloween lost its spark a little bit. Like people weren't celebrating it as much, and it kind of just became no one cares about Halloween. But then comes 2016 till now, I feel like it it made up for that slump, and now it's fucking full force because everybody seems to love Halloween now. And all the decor and all the stuff's being put out much earlier than I feel it used to be. Like it starts at the end of August, the beginning of September, which is great. I love it. It's just something that I kind of made a note of, and I've always thought about. I don't know. Would you agree with that? Do you see where I'm coming from with that, or?
I've always celebrated Halloween. I always went out, even in my early 20s and my late teens, I always went out on Halloween and did Halloween shit. I don't think there was ever a low period for me personally. But I kind of see what you're talking about. I feel like now in July, you go to a Michael's and you start seeing pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns popping up in stores. And I do think there's more people talking about the holiday now. You'll see, even doing this 100%. Even doing this show, we've met people that, have, blogs and things like that just focus on Halloween all year round, like us. So yeah, I definitely think the last few years it's become a bigger deal, and I think it's a good thing. Like it's gonna be, I think it'll get even more popular. I hope. Obviously,
so
this
too.
past year wasn't great for Halloween because of what's going on in the world.
No, but you know what though? I really do think that Halloween did well this year. Like even with what, you know, even with the pandemic going around, I think people still did what they had to do as far as, or at least celebrate it in a way that you could safely, obviously. And you know, it's just like when we went to that haunted house in the car with the Spotify playlist that you listen to, and it prompts you and it gives you like a backstory. That's like a perfect way of like adapting to a situation and going for, like, you know, like in the future, like that's a cool idea in general to do something like that.
Of course.
So I think, like,
I'm sure that's how it's gonna be.
Yeah, and I think that if anything, you know, I think people have found other ways to just implement into your Halloween regime. You know what I'm saying?
I totally agree. It could only get better from
Exactly.
here. Like, that's basically how I see it.
Exactly. I totally agree.
So two more things I want to mention that I enjoyed about this episode. There's a scene where, like, this couple, I guess, you know, all the ghosts are running amok in New York City, and this couple runs into a diner, and they see, like, all the people that are working there. You see the back of their heads, and I guess they're asking for help. Like, hey, can we hide out in here? Or, you know, they're running away from other fucking ghosts. And everyone, I think it's 3 people, they turn towards the couple, and they're skeletons with, like, hair and wig. And it's just a great visual.
Yeah,
like, I just love the visual of these, like, 3 skeletons are always cool looking in anything. So it's just cool to see, like, a Halloween episode with skeletons popping up in some form.
Yeah, I did love that.
And the last thing I want to mention before we get into our cons is the song Midnight Action that plays throughout the episode. And I believe the first lyric is like, Frankenstein is grooving. I think it's like it almost sounds 70s. Like,
Yeah, it's good. Just to add to like a smaller favorite thing, there's a part where all the Ghostbusters are watching like a TV broadcast, and it's like a newscaster dressed as a clown. But like as a photographer, I was looking at it as I would wish I could take that picture of seeing someone dressed as a clown on multiple televisions in a window and people looking at it. So I was just like, that's such a good scene right there. I really loved it.
I do love how the news broadcasters dress up as like full clown makeup. And I don't even think they mention it. I know it's Halloween, and I guess he's just dressed up on the air, which is something I feel more news stations should do. They should have just everyone that works in the broadcast dressed up as characters for Halloween. That'll never happen, but it'd be awesome. But I just love how he's just a clown, and he's like broadcasting like it's basically the end of the world, and he's just dressed up as Bozo.
Right, and very deadpan too, very calm, and very like It was a good thing to add into that.
For sure. So Dave, what's a con that you've got with this episode? What's something you didn't like too much about it?
As I was thinking about it, because it's a cartoon. It's 22 minutes. So I'm trying to think, like they're fitting so much into a 22-minute episode, and I'm just thinking, okay, well, there was something that I thought was like a little dumb. It was when those 2 little goblins, ghosts, monsters, whatever the fuck you want to call them in this world, they just appear out of nowhere in the museum and just go up to it and draw an infinity sign on the clock, doorway, whatever that Samhain's being held in, and that's it. Like, there's no context to anything. It's just, okay, we know to draw this infinity symbol here. This is going to release Samhain. So, that was like really the only thing I was like, I wish they kind of gave a little more backstory to that, but whatever. What about you?
My only defense, going back to your thing, my only defense of that, and the only input I can maybe add into this and give it some clarification is, in the series, New York is infested with ghosts. So I guess these 2 little goblins were like, let's unleash Samhain because he can rule Manhattan or rule New York or rule the world. And I guess that was their idea. And it's almost like they did it and ran away. So it was almost pointless, but...
It's like Ring and Run, except they're just releasing a monster and running away.
They're just like, all right, he's out. Fuck this, let's go. So my only complaint really have to do with how Halloween the episode feels. So besides Samhain as a character, the jack-o'-lantern head, and him wanting to make Halloween night last forever, there isn't much Halloween decor and stuff in the episode. Like, I feel like the firehouse, maybe the Ghostbusters could have put up some Halloween decorations just to add a little more oomph to the way the atmosphere of the show feels. Besides maybe the jack-o'-lantern that Slimer is holding at the end, I don't remember seeing much in the firehouse. And they seem like the type of guys that would decorate for Halloween, like to me at least. You only really get the trick-or-treaters that Janine gives candy to. There's a scene where... Ghost crash at like a little kid's Halloween party.
Right,
I
and
think
even in
they're
that,
like bobbing for apples.
And there's nothing even Halloween decorated in that little party.
No,
it's just a room.
Yeah, they're just like dressed up and bobbing for apples basically, and then the ghosts I think show up and take an apple or some shit. And then the bozo news broadcaster you mentioned. But other than that, there really isn't much Halloweeny type stuff in the episode.
No, there isn't. There's one thing I want to add about the Halloween party. I think the apples turned into ghosts and monsters too when it spills over, because they're red. So I'm assuming that the apples just turned into monsters and ran off.
If I remember correctly, I think that something like that. Either the apples turn into monsters or ghosts, technically, or the ghosts stole their apples while they were bobbing for them.
Whatever.
But that's really the only like Halloween. Like you don't see many trick-or-treaters or anything in the episode.
No. It doesn't feel like a Halloween episode. It definitely doesn't.
No, I'd say
but
25% to 50%. Half of it's Halloween because of the whole plot with Samhain.
Exactly.
But the other half is just a Ghostbusters episode. And my other small nitpick.
Oh, you got two, huh?
You could always use more Stay Puft, man. There's no Stay Puft in this episode at all.
It's not in it at all.
Like Ray sometimes I think goes to sleep. Or like with a little stuffed Stay Puft at times you see him with it and you see it in the background and stuff. There's no Stay Puft in this. And you could always use more Stay Puft, man. That's just me. I love Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. That's my dude. I think I said that earlier. That's my guy right there, Stay Puft. So I wanted more of him. There is plenty of him, in the series as a whole. But that leads us to the closing statement here before we end the show is, Dave, do you think this is a good Halloween watch? Do you think this is something that you should watch in October, September, during the Halloween season?
I would say so, yeah. I do. What about you?
I 100% think you should. Just for Samhain alone. Like, that character is just cool. It's just a cool design. The concept of him wanting to make Halloween night last forever. And just for something that's set in the 80s, like it's really unique. Like there isn't anything else I could really think that's like this, with this creature having this scheme and a group of people having to stop him. Ghostbusters really did. They created just a cool concept with this episode.
I am not leaving. I have come to give my gift. The gift of eternal night, eternal Halloween, eternal me.
So that was When Halloween Was Forever. Be sure to subscribe, follow us on Instagram and Twitter @HauntedHangover.
And if you can rate and review us, that would be greatly appreciated.
And remember, the best cure for a hangover is
more booze. And just a side note, for future ghost busting, you may not want to hire Louie and I, especially if Samhain is out, because we might not want to catch him, because we may want Halloween to last forever.
Later, guys.